why Ali Shariati was able to influence in young people back to some 50, 60 years ago. You know, the answer is that on that time, we are talking about during the Shah's regime, Pahlavi's dynasty. Iran was a neighbor to the Soviet Union. And you know better than me that the ideology of proletariat and communism has spread all over the world, particularly in even some in Muslim countries. For example, in Egypt. For example, in Iraq. Also, a branch of the communism came to Iran, known as uh, Tudeh Party. Tudeh Party. This is the name of a party, a communist party,
Do you want to stop
and they
highlighting
have.
your screen? So can you stop highlighting your screen so you come fully on the
Oh,
page?
yeah, sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, sure. Yeah.
yeah.
Stop, stop sharing.
Yeah, stop sharing so that we could see you fully. Like on Google Meet. Oh, there we go. Fantastic. So yeah, go
Okay,
ahead.
here we go.
We're talking
Here
about
we go.
communism in Iran at that time. Okay, so the communism in Iran at that time
Communism in
through
Iran.
the Tudeh party. Okay, let's go with that.
Tudeh Party. Yeah. Tudeh Party, among the other leftist party in Iran who were dominating in, in many social atmosphere. For example, in universities. So they have been, I mean, crucial influence in young people. And the Shah of Iran was very much alert that this gonna be a very danger for his country. Remember that he was a good ally, a close ally to the United States, and how he can tolerate uh, a communist party coming from the Soviet Union, our neighbor in northern neighbor, to come and influence in this society which is pro-American, which is
Mm.
very much pro-American, the Shah of Iran. So how he could tolerate this? So he began to make a trick. He was thinking that if we let Muslim thinkers, Muslim philosophers, Muslim, I mean, uh, uh, um, um, clerics to influence on people of Iran. So this would work as a barrier, not the communist parties of Iran not to be able to influence on young people. For example, not back to remind you a figure. When Reza Shah, the first king of Pahlavi dynasty, left Iran, there were about 2,000 mosques in Iran. 2,000. And when the Shah of Iran, Muhammad Reza, his son, left Iran in 1979, there were some 50,000 mosques in Iran. It's mind blowing, isn't it?
Mm.
It's mind blowing that what happened here between the father and son, and Muhammad Reza has ruled for 37 years. 37 years, he built some 50,000 mosques in Iran. Why?
Mhm.
What was the reason?
Anti-communism.
The
They were
reason
afraid of
was communism. Yes, communism, because he was very much afraid and worried about the influence of the communism in Iran society, whereas Iran was a pro-American society. So he
Mhm.
was thinking that if we let Muslims, scholars, Muslim thinkers, clerics, clergymen, mosque to be active, they prevent young generation to go to the Communist Party and become a problem for the society. This was in his mind, but he didn't know that what you are thinking about Islam is a neutral Islam, not a political Islam. He didn't know that Islam can turn to a political Islam. If you go to the mosque, you believe in the God, you do fasting, you do not commit sin. You if you go to for Hajj pilgrimage, well, these are all good. What bad? This is your relation with your God. He was believing. Even he himself was a good Muslim. He was believing in God. He was going to Hajj pilgrimage. He went to the um, Mashhad, holy Mashhad city of Iran to pay respect to the Imam Reza. He was considering himself the king of Shia state, but he didn't know that there is another aspect is is being imported in Iran, and that was the ideology of Qutbism through channel of the Nawab Safavi coming to Iran and influencing on the clerics and mosques of Iran to turn to a political identity, political institutes. And that is where all the problems started in Iran when the society of the Islam turned to be political. And this is the miserable story of Iran, started by the time that he let the he didn't notice that he have to stop the ideology of Qutb to come into Iran.
So can I also now re re-explain my
Praise.
understanding of what you said? And okay, so here, so the Pahlavi dynasty, which is the government in Iran before the Islamic Revolution, had only two kings, Reza Shah and Muhammad Reza Shah. Reza Shah the father, Muhammad Reza Shah the son. Reza Shah the father was extremely like he did so many anti-mullah, like he did so many things against the Islamic takeover of the mullahs. He was very, very aggressive against them. He even removed certain types of hijab in many places by force. And
I'll come back
but
to the army.
yeah, okay, so no worries. Muhammad Reza Shah, his son, he was he was really good in so many aspects when it comes to education, when it comes to building the country, when it comes to making political reforms and um, industrial reforms, in making the country go. Both father and son were really good kings that made Iran grew significantly in almost by every metric, like when it comes to economy, rights, and uh, healthcare, education, every single metric that you look at, these two fathers were they did it was a miracle how much they managed to change Iran from the Qajar dynasty, and how bad and poor and uh, fragile Iran was during the Qajar dynasty. When we went from the Qajar dynasty to the Pahlavi dynasty, the two Pahlavi kings, the two Pahlavi Shahs, managed to completely save Iran and turn it into a very powerful country in almost every sense. But until the Islamic Revolution happened in 1979. So this is the similarities between the father and the son, the Pahlavi kings. But one of the differences is the issue of Islam. Reza Shah, the father, was very aggressively, he was influenced by Ataturk. And because of his influence by Ataturk, he tried to put Islam in its place and to make sure that they don't get too much control. However, the son, Muhammad Reza Shah, he was a bit more religious than his father, and he also was, to be fair to Muhammad Reza Shah, he was very concerned, rightfully so, regarding the threat of communism in his country, right? And because of that, he was a lot more sympathetic to Islam, the mosque building, Islamic learning centers, and all of that being built. And he gave them some privileges for them to be able to take advantage of it, because he also considered that a proper way. I mean, communism was atheistic, Islam was anti-atheistic, and he thought this would be, I need the threat of communism is so high that I need every help that I could get against them, right? The problem is that the communism found a friend, managed to become allies with Islamic leaders. Okay, so Islam was supposed to be a pushback, a tool that you use as a force against communism. But what you're experiencing right now, a lot of people right now, when they see leftists uniting with Islamists, okay, this started back more than 50 years ago in Iran. The unity between the far left and Islamic leaders, that's where this has started. And eventually Muhammad Reza Shah referred to it as irtijai surkh o siyah, which means this, he coined this term more than 40 years ago, which means the unholy unity between the red and black, red representing the communists and black representing the mullahs, right? But what made them come together, right? Because Islam is supposed to be anti-communism. How did the communists manage to become allies with the mullahs, with the Islamists? And this is, again, we have to go back to the Muslim Brotherhood ideology, right? Because what do they share? So the Muslim Brotherhood brought anti-imperialism, anti-colonialism, Westernism into the Islamic thought, the Islamic literature in Iran. And the communist focus, their enemy was also imperialism, colonialism, Westernism, right? So because the Islamism during Muhammad Reza Shah, because the Islamic thought in Iran was becoming more and more focused on this anti-imperialism narrative, being imported from Egypt. So we have two countries where they're importing their ideologies into Iran. We have Egypt and we have the Soviet Union. And both of these ideologies that are coming into Iran, and Iran itself has Shia Islam, right? So both of these ideologies, what they share, and I don't know if this is by accident or there's something to it, but both of these ideologies, they have a global takeover mindset, an anti-imperialist, anti-Western mindset. So what happens? The force that was supposed to stand against communism all of a sudden finds that we are fighting the same enemy. So they merge with each other. Communism and Islam merge with each other because the focus on both of them, one coming from Soviet Union and the other one coming from Egypt, Muslim Brotherhood coming from Egypt, they both see the world as polar. The Soviet Union ideology sees as Western versus communism. The Muslim Brotherhood sees as Western versus Islam. They both see the enemy as the West, and they become friends with each other because they're both targeting against the same enemy. And that's why the Islamic Revolution happens, because two powerful forces of Islam and communism goes against the Pahlavi dynasty, and that's what makes the Islamic Revolution of 1979 successful. Is that fair what I just said?
Yeah, quite fair. But something I can add to that is that to Muhammad Reza Shah's perspective, Islam didn't have any aspect of expansionism. He didn't believe that Islam has a political Islam has aspect of the expansionism. If you are a normal neutral Muslim, so you're a Muslim, it's a belief between you and your God. That's all. So you don't think you are not looking for power, political power. So he wanted to expand as much as possible the idea of being a good Muslim, going to Hajj pilgrimage, and going for the practicing Islam, practicing Islam daily. He didn't know in political Islam exactly the same idea of expansionism worldwidely expansionism, like communism is available in Islam as well. In political, Communism. What was communism? Well, communism was an ideology. Any ideology, no difference what an ideology, whatever ideology is expansionist and wants to capture all the world in his
Well,
hands.
not any.
This is any ideology, any
Not
ideology.
any.
When when Islam, based on the Qutbism, turned from a religion, turned from a theology to the ideology, then became like other ideology in the world, to be expansionist, to believing in a whole world to be in his hand, and to become one ummah. Here is the point: to become one ummah. This is what was absent for Shah. He didn't know about this fact. Because he was a good Muslim. Shah was himself was a good Muslim. So he was thinking that as a Muslim, we are practicing Islam, and that's all. He didn't know that if Islam as a theology to turn to be an ideology, then it has an expansionist idea. So then they come to make him takfir. Then clergymen to come to make him an infidel. Then Nawab Safavi appears to consider Shah as an infidel. Then they come to assassinate Shah. Then they come to assassinate his prime ministers. Then they come to assassinate his minister. They come to assassinate Ahmad Kasravi and so on and so forth. He didn't know this the flip side, the flip side of this coin. He didn't know this flip side of the coin. Because of that, as I've said, he let
It-
too many thousands of newly built mosques to appear in Iran after his father left Iran.
Okay, so we have to also mention, because when we talked about the unity on left and Islam, we mentioned Ali Shariati, and then we started talking about his book Ummah, the Imamat and Ummah, but we didn't mention how he's irrelevant to the unifying the left and the Ummah, because sharing the same enemy was not enough, right? Ali Shariati's books trying to bring the revolutionary fetish, the revolutionary fever of communism, and redefining it with Islamic symbolism and Islamic narratives was a key part of this unity, right? So Ali Shariati brought two concepts together twice. First, he brought the concept of Ummah and Imamah together and he married them, but he was a left, he was an leftist Islamist, right? He also married two other concepts with each other. He married the revolutionary fever of communism to the anti-imperialism, the fighting for the poor and the weak and the oppressed of communism, and he took the narratives from Shia Islam, and this is now a uniquely Shia image or symbolism. So the Muslim Brotherhood brought the underlying ideology to make it make it more political for Shias in Iran, but the imagery, the symbolism was still Sunni. Ali Shariati gave it the Shia flavor using Hussein, which is the third Imam of Shia Muslims, his struggle against Yazid, his martyrdom. He painted the communist revolutionary uh, goals and dreams that they have, and he painted it with Hussein. He painted it with the story of Hussein in Shia Islam, and he basically created a Shia version of communism, I think. So, but by making Hussein the central figure representing the weak fighting against the strong, the poor fighting against the rich, the oppressed fighting against the oppressor, the colonies fighting against the imperialists. That all of that was all symbolized by Hussein, and every single other Shia Islamic struggle, like Shia Muslims struggling, whether it was their revolution against the Pahlavi, whether it was their fighting against Saddam, it was all brought back to that framework. Every single struggle that they have of a reflection of Hussein's struggle against Yazid and his fight. So would you agree that Ali Shariati was a key figure in merging the Shia Islam with communism, because so that he could make it look more Islamic than it actually was? Would that be a fair representation of what
Oh,
actually happened?
yeah. But I can theorize what you
Mm.
said in what was called at back then, I mean, some 50, 60 years ago, what was called liberation theology. Remember,
Mhm.
the liberation theology. Liberation theology started in South in Mexique and some southern American countries. I mean, uh, they they believed in Christianity, but people were suppressed and under the pressure of the, I mean, imperialism. So they wanted to fight against the ruling class. So they wanted to know how to fight. Uh, some people believed into the communism, and some believed into the other ideologies. Then church, um, um, church became to say, I mean, some clergy men, some priests, some Christian priests became to how to say theorize the Christianity, not merely as a religion, as a belief between man and God, but as a liberation theology. This is called liberation theology. It started from Mexico and some other countries
Mexico.
from the American continent, and then came to the Middle East area. But in the Middle East area, instead of saying Christianity can turn to be a liberation theology, they said Islam can turn to be a liberation theology. And here comes the role of the Hassanul Banna and Sayyid Qutb and Qutbism. And from the Qutbism, as I have clarified, it came to Iran. So then they said the Shia can be a liberation theology. As you said, Imam Hussein, the third Imam in Shia, who became martyred, who was killed by bad guys. So uh, as he fought against the ruling system, Yazid. So nowadays he is a good symbol. Is a good
Symbol.
symbol for us. He's a good symbol. He's a good pattern. He's a role model for us to fight against the ruling system in Iran. But who is the Yazid of us, our time today? He is Muhammad Reza Shah. And who has to fight them? We, as the Muslims, we have to fight. All this, the idea of liberation theology, no matter whether in Christianity or Sunni or Shia denomination, all became as a one single pattern that you misuse. You misuse your belief in God to be your source of power to fight, to struggle against the ruling system. So, in general, as you said, I mean, you brought a good example of Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein is not seen by a political Shia just only as a infallible Imam. No, he was a pattern. He was a role model. He was a symbol to fight against the ruling system. You see?
Mhm. Fantastic. I'm going to now bring it to today and how that's relevant to everything we're doing today, right? So you mentioned, I don't know if you mentioned to us on the Persian show. I want to now explain to you with the story that I think you mentioned on our Persian show, explain to our audience why the Islamic Republic of Iran is doing everything that is doing. So that's the first step. And then I will go to explaining how this is all relevant to Israel. And then I want to go explain to you how this is all relevant to Europe. And then lastly, what is the solution to all of this? Okay. So let's bring it to today and how this is relevant to what the Islamic Republic of Iran does. So ever since I grew up in Iran, you grew up in Iran, you ask yourself a question that many of us never asked ourselves when we were in school in Iran, like when we were being taught this Islamic revolutionary ideology, right? All my childhood in school, we were always told in school that about the Islamic, that we are revolutionaries, that our ideology is an Islamic revolution.